I don't know what's a crazier statement other than the Bears possibly have a top 5 offensive line, or I also think the Bears might make the NFC Championship game this season. Let's go. What is happening? I hope you guys are having a good day because Chicago, this football team, they're legit. I don't think they're just going to be some team that you say, oh, they're lucky or anything like that. Yeah, they've gotten some close finishes and Caleb Williams has turned it on in the right moments. This football team has made it the right stuff. Ben Johnson, this coaching staff has overhauled things. Got to give a credit to that and the job that they have done. I want to go through this roster. Let's rock it up. We're going to do free agency, of course, in the NFL draft, that mock draft, 7 rounds. The offensive line, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, is really, really good. And these rankings, to me, are not understated how good this offensive line has been. And you might say, well, some of the pressure numbers are a little bit high. Caleb Williams also holds onto the football longer than any other quarterback by a considerable margin. And it's because he's Houdini as well. He can do that. We'll talk more about Caleb Williams and what I think of him so far. But this offensive line, starting from left tackle Theo Benedict, who will get a lot of criticism, or he'll be the one weak link people will come to. And yes, he is the weak link, I guess, when you talk about this offensive line as a whole, which is very stellar. I think Theo Benedict, though, I'm just saying, I would not be shocked if he is somebody that is not just like a swing man or anything like that. He could be a great swing tackle, but at the same time, I think he could be the long term starter over there. It would be fun, too, to maybe say he could be the long term guard for this football team because he does have some length concerns for me where it's like I don't know if he's going to consistently be able to beat some of these longer, faster edge rushers. He does get beat to the edge, and it is a bit of a problem with teams or with edge rushers swiping his hands and stuff like that. I really like him though so far. His run blocking tape is fantastic, and he is at least gotten better in pass protection. I feel like too, to the point where I am a little optimistic that maybe he could be that long-term left tackle. That's kind of my long-winded answer with that for Theo Benedict, but I like him a lot. And I feel like he's been a massive upgrade even this season. So I got to show some love for the young Canadian over there. They can play more than just hockey. They are tough son of a guns, right? They know how to they can get down in those trenches. I'll tell you that right now. I love hockey too. That's one thing I will say. I am going to start talking about the rest of this offensive line though here with guys like Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson. It was rough sledding like the first 2 games, and then something just clicked, right? And ever since then, this offensive line has been a top tier unit, one of the best interior offensive lines in football right now. Yes, you got a plethora of experience here, which is really, really helpful. But man, oh man, they've been a fantastic power unit that, Ben Johnson loves his athletic monsters up in there, and he's got some right now. Luke Newman from Michigan State, one of my favorite players. Actually, I feel like underrated players coming out of Michigan State. Watch out for him down in the line. I really do like him. I thought his film was so good at Holy Cross and even back in Michigan State. Thought he did a fantastic job against Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. Now, I do think that this is something, if I had to personally look at this, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I would rather draft an interior offensive lineman here than draft the tackle in this draft class. And my reasoning for this is that, first up, Theo Benedict. Second of all, you did draft Ozzy Trapillo. Now, I personally am still a little wary on Trapillo, but you did spend a second round pick on him. And if nothing else, he could be a great swing tackle for this football team. And he's still going to develop. He's going to need some time, whether especially if they want to keep him. They moved him back over to right tackle, but in the beginning of the preseason and stuff like that, they were trying him out at left tackle. I would say this too. They could move Darnell Wright over to left tackle and have Ozzy Trapillo play right tackle. Those are both options. No matter what, though, you got to give Darnell Wright an extension. He's a beast. Maybe even hunting down the door on an all pro level type of season. Maybe not quite there yet, but he's definitely closing in on it for sure. Definitely Pro Bowl, I would give Darnell Wright at this point. I would just say, though, overall for this offensive line, investing in the interior is my priority because I think that when you look into 2027, all 3 of those interior offensive linemen, they're a pretty substantial cap hit, and you can move on from any single one of those guys contract wise. And it might be something that they have to do at some point. So just something to consider. Not to mention all of those guys, I believe, will be going into contract years in a 2028 season. So you don't want to just like have nobody ready to be in development and stuff like that. Now, even though I do like like I said earlier with Luke Newman, I like him a lot, and I think he could end up being a long-term starter. Still think that that's something that this team could look at an investment in like the 3rd or 4th round range to me makes a lot of sense. Now, let's go on to the tight end position here. Cole Kmet is still technically the starter, but you got Colston Loveland, who plays a lot out there as your receiving element. He's definitely been more involved as a pass catcher than Kmet. Kmet finally got a little bit more involved this past week versus the Vikes, and Kmet's a great blocker. He's really cemented himself with that role. And even though he is cuttable, I would keep him just because of how good of a blocker he has been in the run game and pass protection and stuff like that. So you got to give credit to those guys in the dirty work. It's not easy, and Kmet has really stepped up his game, and he's taken on that responsibility and what Ben Johnson likes from his tight ends, and he's taking that part really well. And Loveland's been getting more and more involved in the offense. So this tight end room, I don't need to talk about too much. I think they're really, really good. 1-2 punch. I would say that you could invest like late in the draft for a blocking tight end with Kmet, getting more to that end of his contract. Now let's go on to the wide receiving core here, where you got Rome Odunze, who's been stepping up more and more out there, and somebody that I think absolutely can be this team's number one wide receiver going forward. You got DJ Moore, who has been a little bit, topsy-turvy. I don't know if he's got the greatest connection with Caleb Williams either. I just feel like he's so streaky at this point. I don't even know if he creates a whole ton of separation anyway. So I would seriously consider trading DJ Moore with Luther Burden. And he's been limited in terms of a role this season. But when he has gotten out there, I feel like he's made some plays. He's had a couple of drops I've noticed throughout the season. Nothing like insane or anything like that. But I'm happy with Burden so far in his play. Zacchaeus, speaking of drops, there you go. It was to the point where, a couple weeks ago, and it was like, oh, Caleb Williams, he's got him open, but you know what? He's just going to tuck it and run because he doesn't trust Zacchaeus. He had like 4 drops, but anyway, I still think Zacchaeus is fine. I don't want to dog on Zacchaeus too much, but he is a free agent. I think Burden can step up as that wide receiver too with Rome Odunze, especially if you do decide to trade DJ Moore, which we'll talk more about in a little bit, but that is an option that this team may want to consider with their cap situation and where it's at currently. The only thing I would say here is they could invest like late in the draft in a return type of guy, whether it's receiver, running back, etc. On to the running back room here, and you got DeAndre Swift. Also, similar with this offense in general. First couple of games, it was rocky, but ever since, and I'm not talking Rocky Balboa, that was pretty good. Let's go Sylvester Stallone. Tulsa King's pretty fire right now. I'm curious to see how they're going to end the season. I think DeAndre Swift, though, has been fantastic this year, and it's going to be a tricky, tricky situation when it comes to do they decide to move on from DeAndre Swift this offseason. So we'll talk more about that when we get into the free agency strategy, but I'll just give you a little hint. I would say right now we'll continue to monitor that situation. I'll make a more firm decision on my opinion as the season ends and we get in playoffs and stuff like that. But personally, I would just say you go and keep DeAndre Swift, Kyle Monangai. That 1-2 punch that they have right now is so good. It's a really good one. And it's helped with a great offensive line. So that's part of it too. But Monangai is a pure runner, I think is fantastic. He's still coming along as a pass protector, and I think Swift can be a good third down back for them. You got Roschon Johnson, who hasn't played a whole ton this season. Between Monangai and Swift, very, very good tandem of running back duo. It's something that they could throw a draft pick at. It wouldn't shock me, especially Ben Johnson, you know what I mean? But for me personally, it's not that big of a need. I think they got 2 really, really solid running backs, and they've got maybe the most important element of this which is a good offensive line to run behind. You can't have even if you got the best running back, we've seen it. If you don't have a good offensive line, just ain't going to do much. Quarterback, Caleb Williams. I've been so excited to talk about Caleb Williams. He is the best quarterback in the league right now at being an escape artist. There's no other quarterback. He is right there with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes for the best escape artist quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, I just feel that 100%. He is so, so good at avoiding sacks. And I mentioned earlier that he has the highest time to throw. It's like 3.29 seconds. And that's by a considerable margin. I think J.J. McCarthy's next second highest, like 3.14, something like that. But, oh my goodness, Caleb Williams is a Houdini magician at avoiding sacks. And he does it so consistently with that spin move that he's able to do to get outside the pocket. The one thing I will say with Caleb Williams that I want to see him take his game to that elite tier, because I think he's a star quarterback right now. But to get him to that Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen level, he's got to first up be more consistent with the processor and getting it out on time. But also, when you're doing the Houdini plays, he sometimes just isn't accurate with his throws and he isn't hitting them. Whereas Allen's and the Mahomes, they're making the Houdini play by also hitting their wide receiver or, doing whatever. Like, I don't think Williams is quite there yet when it comes to that level. So while I think he is the probably the best quarterback at getting out of pressure right now in the NFL, he just needs to finish more plays. He needs to be more accurate, and he also needs to be a little more decisive with his reads. If he gets to that point, oh my goodness, but the progression that he has made in his second year is definitely fantastic to see for Caleb Williams, the franchise quarterback. Hopefully, might I add, I don't want to say nothing too crazy, right? Bears fans are like, hey, don't be saying no. We don't want to be talking about this. We got to see it to believe it. On to the defense now, the defensive line. They need some more edge talent. I'm just going to say it right now. They need some more pressure on quarterbacks. I like Booker. I really do. I think he, this past week versus Christian Darrisaw, he had a stab on him. Oh, it was insane. If you haven't seen, oh, he has some good tape. He's a really good pass rusher. He needs to get better as a run defender. I think that's really his liability at this point. But I don't think it's like out of the behooving out of his question to get better at that. He's just also a little long and lanky, so it doesn't help him in his leverage and stuff like that. So anyway, but he's definitely a guy that I think we can plant the flag on that at least he's going to be a good rotational player. It wouldn't shock me though if he ends up being a starter for this football team in the long haul. Montez Sweat's contract, we got to make a determination on that. I think they should move on, especially with how much he's being paid. I'm not saying he's a bad football player or anything like that. I just don't think he's really quite at that contract. If he's willing to take a pay cut, then you can go ahead and make that discussion. But for right now, I would say that you want to try to move on there. Deo Dengbo on the opposite side, who's been paid. Unfortunately, he's out for the season. However, Odengbo's fine. I didn't. First up, he's kind of the opposite of the offensive line. Like he had a couple of great weeks at the beginning of the season, and ever since then, I haven't really seen him a whole ton. Obviously, now he's injured, but I don't know. We'll see about Deo Dangbo. I still want to continue to watch him. I know he does some of the dirty work too, so I don't want to harp on him too much in that ranking. Maybe he's a little bit low on that. I'd have to really dig into like the all 22 on Deo Dangbo. I just watch all the full games and stuff like that. So sometimes I just don't see him or I'm not paying attention maybe to that. So it could be a little bit of that sort of thing. Or maybe I'm noticing other players instead. I just want to kind of throw that out there. I don't think Deo is a bad player and certainly hope for a speedy recovery out there. I do think they need to increase their pass rush no matter what. Because for many times throughout the season, I feel like Dominique Robinson's been more of an impact pass rusher and whatnot, even than Deo Dangbo or Montez Sweat at times too. But I mean, Sweat's been productive and everything. But anyway, like that's kind of my opinion. I think Robinson's a guy I would try to bring back. I feel like he's been a really good rotational pass rusher for them. And then you got on the interior, which is going to be another need too, because Andrew Billings, unfortunately, ever since the injuries, he's just not been the same player. I feel like Chris Williams, rotational player. You got Shamar Turner, who's played a little base end too for this football team. It's Dennis Allen, so you know what I mean. I think Turner should be fine. He's injured, so when he comes back and gets healthy and stuff like that, that should give him a little boost on this defensive line. Like a developmental guy behind Grady Jarrett. You got Gravon Dexter, who's been good. He's been their best interior guy. Do you think they need more of a run defender type of dude to be at least in a rotation for this football team? You got Billings, as I said, who's in a contract year. Chris Williams is a free agent. He's more of a rotational player as well. Anyway, I would say that we're going to be looking at investing in the interior some more. Turner, let's get another young guy to go along with him with Dexter. Grady Jarrett's getting a bit older now, and I don't see him making a ton of plays either out there. So he started to kind of regress a little bit now as he's getting a bit older, which is fine. You know, it happens and everything like that. And Grady still makes an impact, but I do want to invest a little bit more on that interior of the defense line. But edge would be the number one priority. I think that is maybe even the number one priority right now on this defense. I mean, safety, we'll talk more about that, but I do think edge rusher is a pretty big need. They need to get some more pressure on the quarterback consistently. Now, let's go into the linebacking room, which has been really good. Even despite losing TJ Edwards, I feel like Edmonds has had one of his best years, and he's been fantastic. He really kind of proved me wrong this season. I was like going into the season saying, yeah, Tremaine Edmonds is a clear cut, and I was mocking Sonny Styles to them like every single mock draft. Edmonds has been an absolute beast, and I would say you probably try to bring him back or keep him, right? You don't cut him. Maybe you can work on some sort of a restructure, or you can even do a contract extension possibly on Edmonds. He's done a great job. I know Dennis Allen's done a good job with linebackers in the past. He's a great linebackers coach and stuff like that. But Edmonds has, not to take any credit away, he's been fantastic. You got Ruben Hippolyte, who's kind of like a hybrid blitzer right now, and he's got a lot of potential there with his athleticism. Oh, he is a missile. There's no doubt about it in a good way. Noah Sewell's he's been fine. He's got his limitations. He's not just the most athletic guy. He definitely in coverage can be a bit exposed in my regard from what I've seen. but he's certainly been somebody that has not been terrible. All right. And he's filled in well enough for TJ Edwards. I would still say that this is an area that I would like to invest in the draft, third, fourth, fifth round. We'll see what we can do. It's not number one priority. It's going to also come down to what they decide to do with Tremaine Edmonds. TJ Edwards is still under contract. You really can't get out of that deal either. So it just really comes down to what they want to do, what decisions. Looking into the future, though, Ruben Hippolyte, certainly a guy with a lot of upside that could end up replacing one of those guys. Well, let's go on to the cornerback room. Look at those Spidey gloves there from Kyler. Whew, I can't wait to get him back on the. He should be back soon. I know Jalen Johnson. I haven't checked if he's going to be active today for the Pittsburgh Steelers game, but that would be a huge, huge addition for sure. But he has been back here, so that is crazy. They're going to get their secondary players back right in time for the end of the season. We go into that playoff run, and that's why I'm saying this Bears team, woo, they're getting back some of their best players. So watch out with Jalen Johnson coming back, Kyler Gordon. You got CJ Gardner Johnson, who I imagine is going to take a hybrid role on for them. Ben Johnson hitting, and he's still going to play in a vast role for this football team. You got Tyreek Stevenson out there. Nashawn Wright has been very impressive, in my opinion. I think he's been good. He's not perfect. He'll give up some plays. He also gets targeted a lot. Teams are trying to pick on him. It is what it is, but he's also made them pay. And I can clearly, for me, he has been certainly somebody that I would not say has been a liability out there. That's my opinion. He's been decent and somebody that I would try to re-sign as a great number 4 cornerback for this football team. I'm not saying he's a long-term starter or anything like that, but if you talk about him as a great backup, absolutely. I think you feel really good about that with Nashawn Wright. Of course, playmaking-wise, he's been fantastic. And then other than that, though, I do think this is something that they could invest in, mainly because Stevenson will be going into 2027 contract year, and they're expensive between Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon. So paying Tyreek Stevenson to me is probably not in the cards. Maybe they're confident in guys like Terrell Smith or, I don't know, Zoff Frazier at this point. I don't know about that. So I would say that this is possibly a second, third, fourth round type of pick, depending on the urgency that they feel. Not to mention just keeping the depth and everything like that is important. But looking into the future and where they're at contract wise, I just don't think they're going to be able to pay Tyreek Stevenson, which is fine. And that's why I would say this is a mid-round, early to mid-round range type of investment looking into the future. Let's go on to the safety room. This is another area that they need to invest in. This could be the biggest need on the defense, depending on what they do in free agency. Kevin Byard's been unbelievable. He's been fantastic. I think the Raiders game was one of the best safety film that I watched all season, or games in general. Insane game by Kevin Byard. You got Jaquan Brisker, solid, steady Eddie. Does have his limitations in coverage, right? And I've seen him get beat sometimes. So, especially up the seams and maybe missing some guys going by him or stuff like that. But in general, I feel like Brisker is solid. Would I pay him? No, especially with where they're at from a contract standpoint. He is a free agent. I would try to bring back Kevin Byard if possible. Yeah, he's getting a little older, but you can give him another 1-year deal type of sort of thing. And then you go into the draft and you can figure something out. Or you bring back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and put him at one of those safety positions. And then you draft somebody, develop them, and have him as their third safety early on and then take over for that position down the line. Either which way, I do think safety is an early-ish need. It's like a day 2 type of need for me in this draft. Of course, if Caleb Downs is there, then boom. Yeah, there you go. Hit right, run to the table. But anyway, where they're currently picking, I don't think Caleb Downs is going to be there, and I'm not going to project that personally. But I will just say that would be something I would absolutely run to the table and do. Going forward and looking at this, though, safety, day 2, where there's a lot of value to be had, especially in this class, I think makes a lot of sense for them to get one of those guys. You got Elijah Hicks, so they could bring back on the cheap. Jonathan Owens, special teams. I don't know if they'll bring him back. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to go into the coaching staff now where we'll talk about Ben Johnson. You can talk about this and that or, some plays here and there. I think he's been fantastic. I really do. And he's clearly taken this football team and they have a whole different mindset. And clearly, this is a team that it's not the same old Bears. Okay. It's not the same old Bears. And I am really, really happy that the Bears, man, this is a fun team to watch. They really are. Dennis Allen, defensive coordinator, has been solid as well. So offensively, defensively, a coaching staff that I feel we don't need to make any changes here. Let's go on to the free agency strategy here. And we're going to start off with the team cuts and / trades, which I'm going to start off Montez Sweat. We're going to let him go. This is one of those where I just feel like for the money that they're paying him, we can go out, get in the draft. We can go out in free agency possibly if we need to. But Booker, I think he's ready to step up and be that guy in more of a full-time role. And overall, just going to help us save some money, get us back in a good cap situation. And then we got DJ Moore. I traded him for a third round pick in 2020. It's an estimate. He's still a solid wide receiver. I just feel like the chemistry, as I said earlier, isn't quite amazing with him and Caleb Williams. And you got Luther Burden, who I feel fully is going to be able to step up into that number 2 role with Rome Odunze. And for their contracts and where they're at right now, I just think it makes a lot of sense to do something like this. Acquire a 2027 third round pick. And for that team, whoever acquires him, it would also make sense too, because like his cap hits wouldn't be bad. He would only be like $23 million over the next couple of years, which for a solid, even wide receiver too, that's a great deal for whoever can get him. And I do think it's worth a third round pick for that. Who knows? Maybe that could be wrong. It's just an estimate. It will not affect this mock draft. I'm just saying in general, we can do something like this. They could also post June 1st, which would save the Bears even more money. It's an option, but I decided to just go ahead and do it right before the draft. So that way we get the cap savings instantly. Now, let's go on to the team re-signs here, which we're going to go ahead, bring back our long snapper, of course. Scott Daly, let's go. I mean, depth-wise, I'm saying we'll go into the draft and we can find a special teamer in Devin Duvernay there, even though Duvernay's fine as a return man. I think we can go into the draft and figure that out. I wanted to prioritize some of these guys on the defense side of the ball, like Dominique Robinson. Let's get him back. Good rotational player. Nashawn Wright. Great to have that depth at the cornerback position. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, his versatility is highly coveted. He can play safety for us. And then we could draft as another safety. I still want to bring back Hicks, though. Also another good veteran that can help out in special teams. Kevin Byard, give him a 1-year deal. As long as he's willing to come back, bring him back, give him a little raise, give him a little boost. Totally fine with that. Now we go on to the restricted period. Pretty self-explanatory. Theo Benedict, boom. Shakalaka, exclusive restricted. Easy sign there for us. Daniel Hardy, also bring him back on the cheap. Practice squad, nothing too crazy there. $4 million, just a little projection. Now we go on to the outside free agent signing. It's a quiet free agency. We don't have a whole ton of money, and that's fine. We don't need to do a whole ton. I feel this roster's good. We'll go into the draft and continue to build. We get Christian Kirk, Alan Lazard here on the offense side, 2 wide receivers to kind of bolster up some depth at the wide receiving room. And with all that money we save from DJ Moore down the line, and it helps us out in that regard, we can also bring in some cheaper veterans like a Christian Kirk and Alan Lazard. And then on defense, Jerry Tillery, going to be a good rotational defensive tackle for them on a 1-year, $2 million deal, $7 million in projected draft spend. So now we got to get into the roster before the draft, and then we'll get into that 7-rounder, highlighting the needs. Still think, as I mentioned earlier, guard of the future is something to at least develop into with Luke Newman. And just finding some more depth is certainly always of importance. And then you look at the wide receiving room. We could draft somebody late as a return man. Tight end, a blocking tight end will be something I look at the end of the draft as well. So, defensively, these are still the bigger needs. We need to get another edge rusher in here. We need some depth, and we could use some more help for sure here. So, adding some more pass rush, going to be ever vital. And then cornerback of the future, just in case, right? Stevenson may not get paid in 2027. So I want to find a guy to develop behind him on a cheap contract. Safety, same thing here. We need to get some guys to develop for the long haul being. Now let's go on to the draft here. Let's bring it up. TJ Parker. He sounds like Spider-Man. We saw those I got Spider-Man. Pew, 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 pew. I got those in my brain. But we got TJ Parker from Clemson, the edge rusher, who's the power rusher. I think he's going to fit Dennis Allen's mold, his scheme of what he's looking for in a power rusher. So that is what I'm looking at. Hey, it's also partially the scheme fit. Well, I might be a little lower. I'll be real. All right. I mean, I may be a little lower on TJ Parker. I also think he's super talented. And somebody here at the back end of the first round would make a lot of sense. With his traits, with his talent, with his power, get him some more development there, and could be a really, really nice bookend here with the Booker and also Deo Dango. To get him some more pass rush, of course, Robinson too. Let's go on to Dylan Thieneman, who I really like. Dylan Thieneman from Oregon. I'm a Ducks fan. He transferred over to Purdue. I'm also a Hoosier. But anyway, Boilermaker as well. We will bring it. All right, IUPUI. I am going to take Dylan Thieneman, though, here, the safety, who I think is going to give him that long-term free safety. I mean, he can play a multitude of roles, but he gives him that Kevin Byard type of replacement down the line, and he doesn't have to start right away, even though I think he can get out there in a role with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and figuring that split out early on, no worries, right? I just think that Thieneman is a great football player, on day 2, as I mentioned. I think there's a lot of value at safety between, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, if you want more of a bigger safety, or a Kamari Ramsey is also a really good selection. Jelani McDonald, if he comes out. So there's so many guys to watch out for in this range that I think would be fantastic additions to this football team. Let's go on to Gennings Dunker from Iowa. Gennings, what a name. I love it. As an offensive lineman, too, that's a great name. Dunker. He dunks people in the run game consistently. I mean, his balance isn't perfect, in my opinion, but he is just looking for destroying guys. And this is something, too, I think, with a year to be able to develop, he gives me some ability to put this guy on the interior and get better in his pass protection game, become less of a liability. Like, the big thing with him is his hands. And he also, in terms of, he plays right tackle, of course, at Iowa, which at the NFL, I just don't think he's going to be able to play tackle with his footwork not being the greatest. And also the fact that his hands, he loses the outside shoulder quite a bit. But on the interior, you can mitigate a lot of those things. And he can just focus in on his raw power and his overall run blocking prowess and get better with his hand technique as a pass protector. This would be the best fit too with his athletic, girly build, right? That it seems like the Ben Johnson likes those type of offensive linemen. Again, athletic guy, zone blocking guy, certainly a scheme fit for this offensive line. Let's go on to Jontez Williams, 4th-round pick here from Iowa State, one of my more underrated players. I think him and Jeremiah Cooper at Iowa State are both fantastic cornerbacks. Jontez, his dad played for the Hurricanes. He was 3rd-round selection or something like that. But anyway, the bloodlines, of course. But Williams, so underrated. Oh my gosh. Yeah, he's short. Maybe he's got T-Rex arms, possibly. I don't know. But the dude has got insane instincts. I think he's really a fluid athlete. I think he's a very patient corner as well. He's not overly grabby. He just times things. He's such a good cover man. And for the Bears, like, they don't play a ton of man coverage, so I think they can get away from a guy who's a little bit on the shorter side. And they do play some man coverage. They're kind of like, I believe, like right in the middle range. And I don't, I see them sometimes go to man coverage, but generally speaking, they're a balanced football team, defensive man to zone combination out there. But Williams, to me, just a guy. I think he's ferocious too in the run game. He could play a little on the outside in the slot. I like him on the outside a lot there at Iowa State, but certainly a dude that, oh man, I like a ton. On to round number 5, Albert Regis, Texas A&M. We're going to see more of him as they get into the playoffs and stuff, but he's been fantastic on that Texas A&M. He does the dirty work. Really, it's what he does. We all talk about Cassius Al and stuff like that, but man, oh man, this guy, he does the dirty work on the inside, and he's a great run blocker. He's improved his pass rush, but at the same time, don't expect him to be a huge pass rusher for this football team, which is fine. He's going to be that rotational run defender for them early on, and that's kind of my view on this one. Let's go on to round number 7, their first pick here, Will Kazmarek from Ohio State, the Ohio State University. He is going to be that blocker, that number 3 blocking tight end. You want to get into the heavy packages? Well, get Will Kazmarek out there. The dude is a monster blocker. And run game, pass pro, he does it all. He does the dirty work. That's instilled in his mantra, it seems like, out there for the Buckeyes, and I love it, right? And that is exactly what Ben Johnson seems to look for. Like some of these guys that can do the dirty work to go along with your Colson Loveland. He would be that number 2 guy for the future for them. And then, hey, he also can be a sneaky weapon, right? When you're doing these, he's going to be a guy that's not like highly regarded. Well, you got Colson Loveland out there. People are going to be paying attention to him. So eventually you can do these play actions and get him on like a little delayed fade or something, right? I'm not talking about Madden or anything like that, but I'm talking about Kazmarek and what he can do. And I do think he still is certainly a sneaky option there. Jack Kelly, oh, he's a little missile as well. He's somebody that plays a little Sam kind of role at BYU, can play off the edge as a blitzer. He's super dynamic and somebody that I think here at the end of the draft, why not, right? If nothing else, he can be a great special teamer. But also, if they do want to run, they don't really seem to run a Holton with a Sam. I've seen Dennis Allen do it in the past, though, so you never know. But Jack Kelly certainly has some of that to his game, and I think it'd be a good little rotational linebacker for them. Final pick of the draft, we're going with Colin Lacey from Louisville, the wide receiver who, was he transferred from South Alabama? But he is a return specialist, right? He's a really, really good return man. And that is my view on this one here at the end of the draft. Yeah, get some wide receiver depth, but at the same time, you're also getting somebody who is going to be able to impact the game as a special teamer right away. So here we go after the draft. Everything we've been able to do. Free agency, let's go. What did we bring? Well, we got Gennings Dunker onto that offensive line to be able to develop behind Jonah Jackson maybe for a season. If you do have to move on or whatever, right? Contracts, as I said before, you might have to get a little cheaper with one of those three guys. And Gennings Dunker, Luke Newman, between those two guys, hopefully you can figure it out, get one long-term starter in there. Will Kazmarek, who will be a great blocking third tight end for them going into this next season, and then Colin Lacey as a return specialist. I didn't get another running back, not worried about it. You could also bring Case Keenum back if you wanted to as well. Like that wouldn't shock me if they did that, give him a cheap contract. A lot of things that they could do out there with that. But let's go on to the defense here, where we really shifted some attention to the secondary. Here we added in Dylan Thieneman and Jontez Williams, both guys that I think could make immediate impacts if they needed to, but especially for the future and going into like 2027, I think those guys would really make some impacts there. Thieneman could be that Kevin Byard. I just put him underneath Gardner because maybe Gardner Johnson could play a little slot hybrid role with Kyler Gordon and all those sort of things, but Thieneman could get out there early on in a rotational basis. And you got Jack Kelly as a Sam hybrid linebacker for them. And then TJ Parker, Albert Regis in the defensive line. Parker in rotation with Booker and Deo Dangbo and Robinson there as he continues to work in and get that rotation basis. But Albert Regis is more of a run defender. But anyway, that's kind of what it is here for the Chicago Bears and what we were able to do for this draft. Let me know what you think, agree or disagree. What would you do differently out there? Also, I heard Aaron Rodgers was pushing to play, but he's out for the game. So, man, that would have been a good storyline. It's all good. They still need to beat the Steelers, so we'll see. Mason Rudolph, you never know. I'm excited to watch that game. That's going to be crazy. But anyway, I hope you guys have a good day. I'll talk to you later.